like almost every high money signing in recent history, Jadon Sancho certainly has not lived up to the hype. But why is this? I think we all know Jadon Sancho was a fine player at Borussia Dortmund, and when you used to talk about Dortmund, you talk about Haaland and Sancho. That's how good he was. One of the best in Europe when it came to goals and assists. An exciting player, skillful, good mentality, worked hard, but also produced the big performances when he needed to. So what's gone wrong, and can it be fixed? There's recently been a report coming out that Ten Hag has lost patience with Jadon Sancho and will be open to selling him in the summer. I think when Ten Hag came in, United fans, we kind of all picked players that we thought would excel and ones that we thought would struggle. One of the ones that I think almost everyone was convinced would work very well under Ten Hag was Jadon Sancho. But it just hasn't worked out. Where's his best position is what I want to start off with. So, before he was signed, I think there was a lot of debate about whether he was a right-sided player or left-sided player or where he was best, because he could play both. Obviously, Marcus Rashford is a left-sided player, and he's been on fire this season. So it's quite hard to drop him. Although I think from my observation of Sancho, he is actually better off the left. When I think of Jadon Sancho's goals for United, almost all of them, I just envisage him cutting back onto that right foot and shooting. And he can only do that from the left-hand side. And I think this is the big problem Sancho's got. I actually think from the left-hand side, he's a very good player. Although I still think he's a very good player on the right, I actually think off the left he's even better. So how do you compensate for that? How do you put Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho in the same team? And now even Anthony. I think it's fair to say Weghorst has not been particularly good for United. I don't think he's been bad for the price we paid for him. Now, if he wasn't basically free, I would say he's been awful. Because he cost so little, it was either Weghorst or no one. And obviously, I think Weghorst is better than having nobody. So that's why I would say the way you kind of put them all in is you have to play Rashford as striker. Now, I don't think Jadon Sancho or Marcus Rashford is a particularly good number 9. But I think he's better than Weghorst. I think almost any player is better than Weghorst. And suddenly then you've got Marcus Rashford on in the number 9, Jadon Sancho on the left, and Anthony on the right. And that'll work, especially when you're playing teams that might have more possession or might dominate us. But when it comes to low block teams like your Brentfords and teams that are basically going to say, right, attack us and we'll counter you, I think that's when that three will struggle. So maybe what you do is you only play that front three against teams where you know you're going to be on the counter. However, when it comes to those games that I've just spoken about where United are going to have a lot of possession and are going to be against a team that is going to be really solid and compact and try and spring and attack us on the counter, I actually think Jadon Sancho is arguably even better than Marcus Rashford for that. Marcus Rashford's been unbelievable this season, but I still don't think when it comes to playing against a low block, he works. He's in behind. He's one of the best players in Europe when it comes to that, getting in behind, timing his runs. He's brilliant. He's never really been that kind of player who will poach you a goal. I'm not saying he can't do it, but that's not what he does. That's not what he has done. Jadon Sancho is the kind of player that if you put him on that right-hand side, especially, can get crosses in, can weave himself around through defenders, can play the overlap ball. So I actually think he's perfect for that, but we've not really seen it. I actually thought, obviously, the comeback for Jadon Sancho, who was out for a very long time, but when he came back and was against Leeds, one of his first games back, if not the first, he obviously scored. And I just thought he was brilliant. He was really tidy on the ball, careful on the ball. You could just see the way, he's a clever player. And I think United are lacking clever players. I think at the start of the season, at one point we did have a few. Eriksen is what I would consider a very clever player. Bruno is a clever player, although sometimes he does, maybe let that kind of rash instinct take over where you're seeing him hit these ridiculous passes that you want him just to calm down. But Eriksen's very clever on the ball. I think Luke Shaw is a very clever player. I think Dalot before the World Cup was a very clever player, was brilliant. Martins and Varane, both good at that. I think we have a lot of them, but I still think Jadon Sancho is one of our most technical players, and we're just not seeing it. Now, one thing about Jadon Sancho, and I can't remember the game, all I know is it was Sabitzer. There was a game we played recently, and Jadon Sancho, he almost kind of went through, and he kind of was isolated the defender, and I was thinking, take him on, and he didn't. And I was quite frustrated, I was going, why haven't you taken him on? You basically let everyone get back into shape. But then he did a kind of little skill move, Sancho, and he actually played the ball into Sabitzer, who got in behind and tried to square it. I can't remember what game it was. I'm sure people will be able to find it. And I think that is Jadon Sancho. That's what he does. Yeah, he might not take people on, but what he did was unbelievable. And it was when you saw someone overlapping and helping him out, that's when he came to life. That's what he does. It gave him the other option because the defender was like, is he going to play the ball? Is he going to cut back? And that's where the threat comes. So I do believe Jadon Sancho, I'd love to see him play on the left again. Luke Shaw, bombing with the overlaps, and really try and show Jadon Sancho for what he is. Because there is a great player in there. When it comes to stats, and I believe this is over this season, there's a few interesting ones. So this is done in percentiles. So the higher percentile you are, the higher, for example, let me do passes attempted, he's 67%. So he's in the top 67% of midfielders and wingers when it comes to passes attempted. When it comes to pass completion, he's in the top 95%. And this is what I'm trying to say about him. When it comes to keeping the ball, he's one of the best players Manchester United have. Progressive carries of the ball, he's in the top 88%. And touches in the attacker's penalty area, 88%. And I don't think we've put him in there enough. That's where he works well, in the tight spaces. I also find this quite interesting because I think there's been I won't call it an agenda, but a kind of idea come out about Jadon Sancho, and that idea is that he's lazy, and I don't really get where this came from. One thing I always said about Jadon Sancho was he'd always work hard, and I think this stat kind of backs it up. He's in the top 75% when it comes to interceptions. He's in the top 70% when it comes to blocks. Now you don't get that from a lazy player. Jadon Sancho works hard. That's one thing I think needs to be, you know, understood really. Yeah, he hasn't been playing well, but he certainly does work hard. When it comes to successful take-ons, he's actually in the top 76%, which is higher than I thought. But I can only imagine this is so high. It's because he barely ever takes anyone on, but when he does, he's fairly good at it. And I think this whole, I do get it. It is frustrating when you see Jadon Sancho basically refusing to take someone on. But again, this is what I'm trying to say. I think that's how he's always played. He's played in a way in which he slows the game down. He waits for the overlap, which at United hasn't really come. And when he's waiting for that overlap, that's when he strikes. He either plays it in to the path of the overlapping fullback or midfielder, or he cuts back. And I think that's where Manchester United really need to support Jadon Sancho. And I see a lot of people saying, that's not an excuse for him. He needs to be playing better anyway. But I think that is a bit harsh. I think there's loads of times where we've seen players go from nothing to brilliant. Granit Xhaka, do you think Granit Xhaka's just suddenly become a much better player overnight or just suddenly out of nowhere? No, of course, it's the system he's playing and is really helping bring out the best in him. And I think Manchester United need to kind of do that for Jadon Sancho. I think that would be very important, and I think that's how we'll see the best version of him. It's Manchester United Brentford tonight. Exciting, big game for United. They must win. I don't care how we win. I don't care if we play the worst we've done all season. We have to win this game. We need to make sure we don't get dragged properly into a top four scrap. Because I know people will say we're in it. I don't think we are. We win our next two games. I think we're 6 points clear of Spurs or 5 clear of Spurs. And we play Spurs as well. So that could be, if we win one of our next two, I think we'll be 2 or 3 points ahead of Spurs. We have to play Spurs. We could suddenly out of nowhere be dropped behind them on the same games played. And I think that's a real worry. And I really hope that Manchester United clever tonight. I hope we don't try anything stupid like this whole Weghorst in the number 8 role experiment that we did. And although I think we actually drew the game when we did it against Barcelona, I don't know, it's just not for me. Not against Brentford. We need to be strong in the air. Will we see something interesting like Maguire come in? Just purely for that aerial ability. I mean, last time we played Brentford, it was the whole Lissandro Martinez, he can't compete in the Premier League by Jamie Carragher. Is Erik Ten Hag going to be a little bit cautious of that? I don't know. If Wan-Bissaka's fit, will he start over Dalot? Because some people believe he's better in the air than Dalot. McTominay, for me, I wouldn't start him in any other game but this one. I think he has to start, which is a shame because I'd much rather play Fred and Sabitzer, but you cannot have a midfield three of Bruno, Fred, and Sabitzer against the giants in that Brentford side. We'll get absolutely bullied on every corner. Weghorst has to start again due to that height. But I would play Sancho, and I would. This is the dilemma I've got because I thought Anthony was good in the last game, and I thought Rashford wasn't. And I would almost go as far as to say I would drop Rashford, but then I realise how stupid I sound. If Brentford are going to sit back and are going to basically let us come onto them and let us try and break them down, I really hope Erik Ten Hag is ruthless and is quite courageous and drops Marcus Rashford because I don't think that's where he's best. I think he's excellent, as I've said, in behind. But I don't think this is where he works. I think if you play Sancho on the left, Ansi on the right, Weghorst down the middle, suddenly what you've got is two wingers who will play the overlaps to full backs who will get the crossing. And I think that's how United need to operate. And I really hope Erik Ten Hag does go ambitious tonight because we've got to win. I thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions on other players to maybe have a little look at, transfers we need to look at, please do let me know down below. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching and goodbye.